Ready? Yeah. I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield Regular Township Board Meeting to order for Tuesday, August 27th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all stand, please face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
What? Treasurer.
Here. Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Demink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg. Here. Clerk Barry is here.
Item 4, approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support. Motion by Clerk Barry, supported by Trustee Anderson. Clerk Barry?
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Treasurer Elliott. Aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 5, presentations. We do have a presentation tonight. We have Priority Waste here. Mr. Dan Vanette and Don Beretta would like to address the board. We've been working with these two gentlemen since the transition from GFL to Priority. There's been several bumps in the road, but we've always been in communication with them. So, Mr. Vanette, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Board. Again, my name is Dan Vinay. I'm Vice President of Municipal Sales for Priority. I've been with the company for 5.5 years now. The company is 6 years, 6.5 years, so I joined about a year into it. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to talk to anything that you have seen, heard, or have questions on. Where we started July 1st was not an ideal situation. I know that it's been broadcasted on various news outlets, some of the issues we dealt with on the equipment. Great results transpired from there and where we sit today. When we started the transition on July 1st, we were running about 100 to 120 routes shy a day. That means that we didn't have 120 trucks to run the different roads across the 75 communities that we took on. Today, we're running on average 20, so a fifth of that number. So great strides. I have to give accolades to our team in the mechanic shops as well as the third parties that we utilize to get these trucks up and on the roads. Chesterfield generally averages 9 trucks a day to service your community. We're now at that stable market of 9 trucks per day. The long-term result of the issues that we've dealt with is that there's still some downtime on the daily routes that we are overcoming. That does cause delays in pickups. If you don't have a spare to replace a truck that's going to be down for multiple hours, which at the current status we do not have, that is where we see the shortcomings in communities like yours that have what would be a normal allocation for assets. Over time, as the remaining trucks come back into operation, we'll have the required and necessary spares to fill in as needed, as well as the orders for new vehicles that we placed a few months ago are going to start trickling in to pilfer out the more in need of just scrapping vehicles that have been running previously to us, and now as we put Band-Aids on them to run now. It's been a trying time for, I know, your residents. I know it's been a trying time for your staff in the offices, administrative, the leaders that have called me in the township. I want to first off by saying thank you and sorry at the same time for what you had to endure, knowing that it was not what you would call your normal service to the community. It's something that as a former hockey player, more specifically a goalie, when I left my crease, I wanted to keep the net clean every night, and kind of taken that same mentality in the trash industry of keeping your streets clean every night. And so far, I know that there's been trials and tribulations in this. Our team is committed to getting this right. Our team is committed to improving on the service levels that you may have thought were great with GFL, to seeing the next wave of how we operate more efficiently, how we improve on what you experienced before to where we are today. A neighboring community of New Baltimore saw an improvement in their third year of our service when we incorporated the technology component, the cameras, GPS trackers, and the customer service side of the design. And I know that in the next short period here, there's going to be a very significant improvement. Cameras are getting installed on your trucks. We're about 75% of the way through your vehicles. That'll give us the capability to spot check incidents that get called into yours or our office, and that'll help with identifying root causes to make positive permanent cures. As well as with that, we can identify and more proactively address incidents that are our fault, things that need to be corrected, things that are in the gray areas of service. And I'm excited for that transition that should be done in here in the next week or so. I don't want to put a hard timeline on it because sometimes the cameras have to be taken off and reinstalled too. But you're going to see that improvement on the service side. For our customer service center, where we take our calls, what we call the pit in Clinton Township, we've added additional staff. We've just about doubled the amount of people in our office that can take calls. We've seen a dramatic decrease in call wait times. I know that is a common complaint from the public. And personally, we had a standard of ourselves of average resolution time before the transition of under 3 minutes, first call resolution rate of 99.87%. And that's what we want to get back to, that residents, if they have an issue, which shouldn't be very many, get on the phone to our team, get it resolved quickly so that they can get back to their normal working days or enjoy their personal lives. So having people available to answer phone calls is the next wave of that experience. And we subsequently didn't want to just throw people at the problem, because if they answered the call for Chesterfield and gave bad information, that's just going to cause the resident to, understandably so, get more elevated in concern, potentially more angry because now they're having to make a follow-up call to somebody else. So we were pragmatic in releasing those individuals to answer the phone calls because we didn't want that problem to be multiplied by bad information. So I know that I'm sure you have many questions. I tried to give kind of an overview of where we were and where we're sitting today. The phone systems that are in play were upgraded throughout the month of July and August. Another improvement to the phone system will happen September 12th or 13th, if I remember correctly. We're transitioning to AWS, it's Amazon Web Solutions, for their phone operating system, which will have additional back-end support options through AI technology that will identify phone numbers that have maybe called in historically and get them to the proper person ahead of it so that they're not having to click a button to go to Chesterfield Township's call the queue. And that'll, again, speed up the process for residents to get in. So that September 13th will be an upgrade. There'll be another rollout in 30 days from there. And this full operating system, I'm being told, it should be live, operational, and fully functioning by around December of this year. The goal is to get it earlier if we can. So we're working around the clock. We have IT work on at night to improve and put patches in where we're seeing issues, and then during the day identifying to do that nightly work. So still a long way to go as far as getting it back to our standards. And personally, where I want your residents, friends and family that call the township home, what they see from us. There's not a night that goes by that I'm not sitting next to my wife in bed thinking about what's going on and how we can make proactive adjustments and also reacting to the things that have been alerted to us. So I'll give up the floor at this moment for any questions that you have, unless Don has anything to say.
No, I'm good. It's, Dan's been with Priority Waste pretty much from the get-go. I'm a newbie. I've been there for 8 weeks right now. And I can tell you that I've been around a long time, seen a lot of acquisitions like this. This one was very quick and very big. And they've done just a great job putting everything together, with the shortfall on all of the equipment that they got from GFL. So I know Dan puts in probably 18 hours a day. I'm lucky if I get 8 in, but I worry just like he does, and I've been with Chesterfield Township for a long time, and I just want the best for all the residents that are here. I've been here with Chesterfield since 2004, and I hope to be around with Chesterfield to get this thing completed.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Anderson?
Yeah, thank you. You know, quite a few of some of our residents aren't aware of the, you know, the change from GFL to your company. I just wondered, when you do field through us or whatever, a valid complaint, not pick up, I just wonder, what is the turnaround time when it's actually completed? And does your firm call the resident and let them know, you know, as a follow-up of that issue? Thank you.
Yeah, our standard practices are within 24 hours of notice. If faster, we will get there. So if it's, let's say, alerted earlier in a day, you know, early morning, we try to address those at the end of the day, that current, if we're around and in the area, which we are 4 days out of the week. It gets more complicated the later the day goes on to address them on the same day, which could bleed into the following. I know that some complaints come in maybe more vague or general, as this whole street was missed, and we may make an attempt and go to that street and miss the other half of it. And those are areas that I know will be able to assist us when we have the cameras installed to identify and make corrective actions. As human error is still a thing. Guys and gals are out in the trucks working in extreme heat like they have the last 2 days, flash storms, and they rush into the truck to get shelter or take a necessary break so they don't get heat exhaustion. But our goals for resolution time are 24 hours or less to make sure residents are getting the appropriate action quickly. But ultimately, we would just want to get the stuff up on the same day.
Thank you. Any further, Trustee Domingue?
I know we've had a lot of issues, things like that, but Mr. Vinay, I'll be very frank. When I did make contact with you twice, you were very courteous to me, and you worked on the problems that were brought to me by residents, so I thank you for that, and hopefully we can get the rest of these out. But yes, I will say that you've been very courteous, and you got back with me, you know, within a couple hours when I did call you, so thank you for that, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Fosberg. My apologies.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a question regarding, you mentioned that we are a 9-truck community, meaning to do it in a day, it requires what the equivalent of 9 trucks in whatever number of hours you assign to that. But the problem can still be if one of those trucks is out of commission or has something happens during the process. Right now, you don't have a replacement. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct, yeah. So 9 trucks is what we normally would run in Chesterfield Township Monday through Thursday. And what we are seeing, again, it kind of leads back to what happened on July 1st. What we found is some of the assets we took over were not as well maintained as they should have been. And for safety purposes, we identified, tagged, and removed those. You know, we knew that that was going to cause pain and strife, but I'd rather deal with what we have than have potentially an injury or a fatality on our record because of that, right? So it's a tough decision to make. Do we take the chance and maybe get the trash up for 2 or 3 days before the truck really fails, or have a more significant problem on our hands? So as we sit today, while we have the 9 trucks on a daily starting, it's not like our personal vehicles where I know I wake up in the morning, I can start my car, it's gonna run and get me to work and back. These trucks are very temperamental. They get hot, they shut down. They get cold, they shut down. The DEF systems, as I'm sure your fire departments and police departments in their vehicles, they are temperamental and sometimes need a regen. And for a good reason, you know, they're trying to help the environment with those systems, but they need regens. So those are quick fixes. But if we have something more substantial happen where we need a road truck go out or a tech truck go out and fix it, it could be that they're on another call, there's another one before they can get to that one too. So it takes what could have been maybe a 30-minute fix after a 30-minute travel to potentially 2, 3, 4, 5 hours delay. Again, we've hired as many mechanics as we can find. I'm sure, as you hear, it's not as easy to find heavy mechanics, heavy equipment mechanics in the industry. A lot of them are going to dealerships and making $50 an hour working on Subarus in a closed environment where they don't want to work under a heavy, stinky trash truck. So that's the hurdle we're overcoming now, but with the additional assets that we purchased and the trucks coming back from permanent repair, we'll have that appropriate staff or stable, I'll call it, of vehicles to come in for that downtime requirement.
Okay, what, have you had an improvement since July 1? In Chesterfield, you mentioned contract-wide, in the region, you mentioned those numbers. How about in Chesterfield?
Yes, so in Chesterfield, when we started in July, I think we were running 6 to 7 trucks on a day, and now we're running with the 9 on the normal route schedule. So we have the 9 trucks. We hope that they all stay up and running all day so we can finish all of the routes on time. But yeah, when we first started, we were in the market of 6 to 7, which is 66% or so of the required fleet. Anything south of 90% of your asset allocation, that's where you start to struggle, and that's 90% with them running all day 100%, right? So we're in a much better position starting the day each day, and then it's overcoming obstacles as they come up, knowing that we may work late if we have to, and make plans to recover if we can't that night for the early part of the next morning. And that's just the hurdle we're overcoming.
And then I'm just curious about this. If you're not able to complete a route on their assigned day, do you try to do it the next day, so then that makes it hard to get to those people that are due on, say they have a Wednesday, you don't make it on Wednesday, so do you go back on Thursday, or do you wait till the Friday when there's to make up? How does that part work?
Yeah, if we know of an area we've missed, we try to go back the very first thing the next morning to get it, because to proactively avoid the calls from the residents to complain that they were missed. That helps if they see or hear, whether it be physically or social media, somebody mentioning that they saw a truck come by their street, and be more patient, they're on their way. My brother-in-law and sister live in Chesterfield Township, and it was the yard waste issue on Monday. We got back, I think this was last week, but on Monday, wasn't picked up, and then we came first thing on Tuesday, and he texted me and said, thanks for coming, you know. So that's always the game plan. There are always blind spots that we're overcoming, new developments. The township's growing exponentially and has exponentially over the last 5 to 10 years. So there are some developments that maybe we didn't have identified, or we were more cautious and didn't go into, thinking there might have been a private contract issue that they held with another carrier. And those have been mostly identified, mostly weeded out. So it's a normal transition, and Mr. Siebert saw us with Washington Township when we took them over in 2022. There's a normal transition period of 30 days where you're kind of working through the wrinkles of the sheet, and you compound that with the asset issue we had, it makes that 30-day window extended quite a bit, because now you're learning and adjusting on the same at the same time.
My last thing is, I'm sure the customers just want the service, because they, complaints I've received now, there's 2 days of garbage sitting out. It's been sitting out there 2 days, and in this kind of weather, it gets ripe. What plans, are there any plans to compensate people who have been not serviced very well, or what plans, if any, are there for that?
No, I'll just say that that's something a little bit above my pay grade in a sense, but there's been zero discussion to me about compensation to the residents. I'll say this, I understand that. I understand that would be a request, but there's been no conversations to have compensation.
Okay, and again, I think if they just get the service that they were used to getting, I think they will be satisfied. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item 6, department reports. Start with Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening. I wanted to give an update on a pothole that appeared yesterday in Jefferson Avenue near the Bay Harbor outlet or discharge pipe. The picture on the right is the pothole as discovered, and the picture on the left is after we went out and did repair on it. We put large stone in there and then topped it with cold patch and rolled it. We have investigated the outlet pipe. It's a large elliptical pipe coming out of Bay Harbor. There's 2 sweeps coming out of the pipe. When it comes out of the station, it sweeps to go down Jefferson. All those joints are bad. You know, I wouldn't call it separation, but the joints are no longer premium. There's stormwater leaving those joints. We think it's getting up into the base of the Jefferson pavement and probably creating, you know, that pothole and maybe a couple more in the future. The rehabilitation of the outlet pipe is in design right now. We're expecting to receive bids in November to fix that discharge pipe, so it will be back to premium joints and not leaking underneath the pipe. So until that time of that repair takes place, you know, we've talked to the Macomb County Department of Roads. We're gonna continue to monitor the area and the situation and repair it as potholes appear.
Thanks, sir. Any questions? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, Mitch, you're calling this a pothole, but really it's more of a sinkhole. You're talking about like the erosion beneath the surface, not a defect in the, you know, surface level. This is a problem because you're seeing it on the top, but you're
Right.
really dealing with an erosion underneath. Has there been any assessment in terms of the structural integrity of like the areas along that joint? Do we have any other areas that are like washed out, or is there a way to see that? Or we don't know until it's visually apparent on the top?
Yeah, we know that when the pumps kick on at Bay Harbor,
Sure.
some of that water leaving the outlet, the discharge pipe, is leaving through the joints, getting up into the subgrade of Jefferson Avenue. We have witnessed the pipe. We had a sonar company and check the pipe, but we have not done any work on the Jefferson base. So, you know, short of digging up and seeing the voids that are there now, it would be hard to, you almost got to wait till they appear and then react to them.
Yeah, that's manageable, right? But we see some horror stories, and it's not too
Yeah.
far out from this county where we've had, you know, major calamities. We don't have anything at that proportion with this type of problem.
Yeah, the one advantage we have is there's only like 2 feet of cover
Okay.
over our pipe.
Yeah.
It's not a deep pipe.
Okay,
So if there's voids being created, it's right near the surface.
Got it.
Which
Okay.
are, you know, maintainable. We'll have to limp them
problematic,
up.
but not necessarily devastating if,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Mitch.
Mitch, we gave the presentation here on the type and style of this pipe back, I think, April. The elliptical, 60-inch elliptical.
Yeah, it's
odd
60 by
design.
108 inch. We had it,
And this was included in the Bay Harbor renovation plan originally and
Yes.
was funded through the federal grant, just so
Yes.
everybody is clear on this. And this
Yeah.
has been in design in replacement for,
yeah, the OHM was awarded the design, I'm gonna guess maybe half a year ago, 4 or 5 months ago. So the design is in process. You know we have to bulkhead and dewater the pipe, set up bypass pumping, and then we have 3 different options to repair the pipe. We can either open cut, replace it, line it with cured in place liner, or do, you know, grout up the joints and repair the spots that are bad. The good news is the only parts of the pipe that are bad are on the sweeps where the water turns. It sweeps coming out of Bay Harbor, and then it sweeps again at the very outlet before it taps into the county drain. So the straight run of pipe, which is the majority of the pipe, is still in very good shape.
any more questions? Any further questions? Thank you, sir. Any further department reports? Clerk Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just very briefly, for those of you who are familiar with elections, typically being released and available, all materials being available for inspection by this time, due to Proposal 22-2, there is a delay in that. The canvassers could not begin as early as they have in the past. So for those who are requesting access to election materials from the August primary, we are still waiting for that election to be released by the Bureau of Elections. As soon as it is, all of those materials will be available for inspection upon request. Also, absentee ballots for the November general election are expected to be available within the next several weeks. For those who are already asking for ballots, we do not have ballots yet, but as soon as we receive those ballots in-house, we will be turning those out within a matter of a few days, and they will be sent out to residents and those who are on the permanent ballot list, as well as those who've requested them. So for those who are already calling to ask for ballots, we do not have them yet, but I will alert the public as well as the board as soon as those ballots become available in-house. Thank you.
Just a couple items from the supervisor's office. We've had some ongoing meetings with the Macomb County Department of Roads in regards to roadside ditches and culverts. One of the causes of flooding in heavy rains is the failure of driveway culverts and roadside ditches. Began this about 3 months ago in meeting with not only the Department of Roads, but with neighboring township supervisors and engineers to come up with some sort of solution as to how we can clean up or at least fix some of the driveway culverts that are aged, in disrepair, or just completely plugged. In fact, I've dragged Attorney Siebert with me to a couple of these meetings. These meetings, as you know, the township has absolutely no authority when it comes to roadside ditches and driveway culverts. But yet, when you drive around the township, I can pick them out now, which ones have failed, which ones are blocked. The county does not have an active ditching program. That is something that they do, the best I could determine is at leisure or when it's an emergent situation, but it's very limited. One of the proposals that I asked them, the Department of Roads, is what can we do as a township to help enforce or clean up the clogged culverts and ditches? And we've engaged in those discussions to see if maybe there was some sort of enforcement ability that the county would grant us to where our staff, when heavy rains occur, or at least just driving around, could identify some of these culverts that are clearly failed and to avoid some flooding. After a couple of meetings, not only with the Department of Roads, but with engineering, it's a much greater problem and an engineering issue that it's gonna take more time. And then also to even see if this is something that the township would even want to take on. I believe personally that it's important because right now I don't think it's being watched and monitored enough at the Department of Roads, and they claim that they're doing everything they can, but obviously we have flooding during heavy rain events. So that's hence where we came up with, hey, the residents have to maintain their ditches and they've got to maintain their culverts, but who enforces it is where we become lax when they fail. And there's so many issues just with the failure side of it. So what I want to do is reach out individually to each board member and kind of take your pulse, see what direction we want to go on this, because this is going to be a growing problem as these heavier rains occur. Next item I want to inform the board on is we've had continuous meetings with SMART, and particularly in the areas of community funding and community credits and what money we get back from the funding that we send down to SMART. I can tell you after today's meeting and meeting with actually the executive board of SMART is that is a bureaucracy that is, there's so many onion layers to it. It is, we got an education. The goal was, and still is, to figure out a way that Richmond Lennox EMS, which is our connector service, and they have a different name for it, it's not a connector service, provide services at a greater capability and enhancement to our residents, particularly to our seniors, and then also provides enhancements to our senior programming events. We have asked for, in the prior year agreements, Mr. White, Jeff White from Richmond Lennox gives us the contract, the year service contract, and it comes back with a set amount of funding. What I asked for was I want a percentage. I want a percentage of what we send to SMART, to their board, which is a little over $2 million. I want a substantial percentage back. I don't know if that's going to float, But what I did get was, we've got several townships, again, partnering with Macomb, Harrison, our surrounding communities, and getting smart in a table to at least discuss it, it is a very, very big problem, and they are willing to work with us. So and that's just one area, the bus stops, the pads, the shelters, all of those things are part of this discussion. And it's a bureaucracy that is, and I don't blame SMART and their board. It starts at the federal level and how federal funds are transmitted throughout the county, and then, or to the states, and then from the state level down to the counties. So I'm gonna engage most of you on one-on-one with where do we want to go with this. I hope we had a win today. I think I'm not gonna present the Richmond Lennox credit contract yet. My hope is that it's gonna come back in September, and there's gonna be a substantial increase in it, particularly how it funds our residents and our senior programming without impacting what Michelle Vanderson does with the other credits. So again, that'll be an ongoing discussion. We had a quick meeting today about the discussion of development of Connie Bowles Park at 25 in Gratiot. I'd love, again, the board's input on what they would like to see there. Obviously, that is a discussion, but I'd like to begin the footprint of concept drawing and concept planning for there. That's the Connie Bowles Park, 25 in Gratiot, where the township bought the property, the old farm, and then the fire department bought the corner for a fire station. Which I think we should have that discussion beginning also about placing a fire station there. And then, real quick, the retention ponds conversation that we have here in Chesterfield Township, we are literally mining documents back to the early 80s, and some of them are, they're different documents. Every retention pond brought in had a different discussion to it or a different approach to it. So we're trying to nail that down. Again, I've dragged Attorney Siebert into that. He's actually met with the individual department heads to try and get everybody on the same page. But that is something it's not something that's going to go away, and it needs something that needs constant monitoring and attention. So we're going to make some administrative changes internally to address that. With that being said, I will move on to item 7. Public comments on agenda items only. There's a 3-minute time limit, and if you would, state your name, just so we can keep track of the record. Mic is open. Seeing no comments, I'll move on to number 8, the consent agenda.
Good evening, Janice Young. Couple of things. Item 10E, the lease between Chesterfield and Anchor Bay. I'm a little confused why we would have bought Sugar Bush Elementary to turn right back around and lease space to them and to the Head Start program. I still have some questions on that. I'm sure they'll be addressed, but we're forced to ask our questions ahead of time. Who's going to provide custodial services to their leased space? I know with the agreement before, we had to do that when we were leasing it. Who pays the utilities, who pays the insurance, and who pays for maintenance to the grounds and the building? Item 10F, the art program. If Chesterfield does get selected for that, do the residents get any input as to the design that would be put on the building? Item H, the interceptor. This item failed at the last meeting because one of the rubber stamp squads was missing, so I knew it would be brought back at this meeting. So why does this board even bother to have meetings and vote? If you just bring things back after they fail, after a tie vote. It's been discussed before that our APO is vague when it comes to tie votes, so I'm requesting that the APO be revised to provide clear and defined rules to follow when there is a tie vote. You just can't keep bringing failed items back at the next meeting when you have your 4 votes. There should be at least a specific time period before failed items can be brought back, maybe 3 months or 6 months. At least pretend like you're going to do the right thing. Back to the department reports, if I can touch back on those. Priority, this board obligated us to a 5-year contract with a company we didn't know anything about. So I think it's your obligation to give the residents a credit for the service that was missed. And I just want to remind the board and the residents, the failing infrastructure and the ditches, you guys had $5 million of ARPA money that you blew on Parks and Rec and not one dime on infrastructure. Thanks.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. In regards to the bill run, I'm going to keep saying this until we can get it right. Anytime any payments made using the residents' money, we need to list who went on the bill run. For example, under the supervisor's office, I'm going to assume that this, and this is just an assumption, that it was Supervisor Kersten that went to the Anchor Bay Chambers luncheon at a cost of $40. Under the treasurer's office, there are multiple charges with no names on them that go anywhere from Delta Airlines in the cost of $278 to a return flight from Delta Airlines at $308 to a conference to a car rental, multiple charges with no names on it. And this is all using the residents' money. So, and I've asked several times that the individual or individuals that go need to be listed on this bill run. So, complete failure. It's a simple policy, a simple thing to institute. I don't understand what's so difficult about it. Under the agenda, again, item E, we bought that dilapidated 50-year-old lead-infested elementary school, and now Anchor Bay wants to lease a portion of it back from us. Makes absolutely no sense to me. Item H, on the approval of the interceptor, Treasurer Elliott was gone at the last meeting, so it was a tie vote. She's back, so I'm sure Supervisor Kersten's going to get that fourth vote. I think with the APO being vague, I think Mr. Siebert's wrong on it, so I don't think it should come back again. It was a tie vote, and there should be a period of time before it's looked at and brought back to the board, if it's brought back at all. I mean, when the motion fails, it fails. It failed with it being a tie vote is the way to look at it. And as far as item I for the elections department, you know what? I think the elections department needs some money and should be given to them. So we've got a big election coming up in November, and we need to try to make it as smooth and easy for that department as possible. Thank you.
James Locke, item 10E. Now, if we are not going to watch out for the seniors over there at the center and their health, which 3 of the board members here promised to look out for them, and they told them at the last meeting, don't worry, you won't be mixed with children, you won't be any contact between you and the children. You talked about Head Start. You didn't talk about the Anchor Bay preschool program. Yes, you mentioned they might want to rent some space, but you never really explained it to the seniors that they would be in contact with those children. Now, I think the amount that you're charging for space per square foot is too damn low. If we're going to bring these kids in here, we're going to make the seniors vulnerable to sickness and that, and we're going to disregard everything else. You need to be charging enough to cover the cost of that whole building. We don't owe Anchor Bay School a damn thing. They charged us a high price for that building. They got their money. Time for you to turn around and take it back from them if you're going to lease it to them again. Thank you.
Michelle Merriweather. I just wanted to comment on the priority race conversation earlier. I had an opportunity to walk in. I may have missed a bit of it, but I just wanted to state that I was happy to see that they did have management here. I had an outstanding about 30-minute conversation with their representative, I think it was Matt, about a week ago and had the pleasure of partnering with our supervisor and also with Karen on ensuring that we were able to get some of the comments from the citizens. There was a thread of about 100 or plus different comments that I was able to navigate and facilitate in social media here recently. So it sounds as if, from what I've picked up, that they have some solutions. One of the goals was, as I spoke to the team, was what I see is that the information is not cascading down to our residents. I believe when I spoke to Priority Waste, it sounded as if that there was some great things in place that they have accomplished over their first 90-day goal period. My question was, and I came in a little late because of the weather, my question was to try to find out what were the successes, and I heard Ms. Vosberg asked that. What were the successes, what were the challenges, and what were the plans in place for now the next 40 days of their 90-day committed period, and then also to find the way that to communicate with Chesterfield citizens in the way they communicate. We are a very, very, very heavily social media driven township. And so what I was told is we're answering these questions over and over. We're putting them in the Macomb Daily. And I slowed them down and said, you have to speak to the residents in the way that they are best going to receive the information. So we actually had some good conversations on that, on different ways that the information can cascade better to the residents. And it sounds as if we may be able to walk away with a plan of action as well. So thank you again for Priority Waste coming, and we'll continue to monitor that, and I appreciate the board's help.
Any further comments from the public on agenda items? Item 8, the consent agenda.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of August 13th, 2024. Approval of the payment of bills is submitted by the Finance Department.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a second with the addition of, I would like the approval of the payment of bills removed.
Clerk Berry, would you support that?
I'll amend my motion with the support.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Demink to approve with the removal of the bill run. And we will make the bill run item 10A. Any further discussion? Clerk Berry, call roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Demink. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9, public hearing.
9A is to conduct a public hearing for the August 27th, 2024 regular Township Board meeting at 7 p.m. to hear comments concerning the estimate of costs to provide police and fire protection as determined by the Township Board, and also on the distribution of the special assessments levy for said police and fire protection.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to open the public hearing at 7:44. Is there support?
Second.
Clerk Berry? Clerk Berry, call roll.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Public hearing is open. Mic is open for public comments on the public safety SAD.
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township, under the Public Safety SAD, we've got a direct obligation to continue funding police and fire, giving our men and women in uniform the equipment and training that they need. So as a township, I fully support this, and in my opinion, I think we've got one of the best police and fire departments in any community. So, again, we need to support our men and women, give them whatever they need, and always stand behind them, because every day we need to thank each and every one of them because they go out, they put their lives on the line for all of us and to keep our community safe. And I want to thank all our men and women in uniform.
Any further comments?
I'd like to state as well on the agenda item, full support in regard to whatever's needed for police and fire protection. I'd just like to say to fire protection, the sheer number of times they've come by my house for me burning some food, you know, give them the money they deserve. On the police, definitely, we enjoy you in the community, and I just wanted to say to Brian, the relationships in the community that you and your officers, the establishment, it's just going great. So just appreciate everything and keep doing what you guys are doing. You're really making a difference, and it's a great relationship that are forming with the community, and we appreciate it. Okay.
All right, so the millage is perfectly fine as it is. Status quo should remain status quo. I just hope that the budget is reprioritized so that it is more inclusive for the fire department. It is heavily outweighed for the police, and I think that it should be noted that the fire did provide much of the funding for saving the police department back when the conversion happened. So ensure a greater emphasis on increasing the amount of full-time firefighters for our community to be protected is highly important, as well as ensuring that they have more long-term employment in the township versus our competitors across the county and such. Thank you.
Janice Young. I don't comment too much on police and fire. I just always hope that they're going to be there when we need them. I don't think that tonight's item is necessarily about the departments themselves and being critical on that. It's about the money. And I'm in full support of supporting both departments. I did go back and watch the meetings from the last 2 years, the public hearings, just to see what the comments that were said and what were talked about. And I know it was mentioned about the overtime at the Bass Festival. Our police officers were used, and the overtime was incurred for that. I just think in areas like that, we could cut the spending. You know, we don't need to do that. I think we paid an officer overtime to provide pedestrian crossing for the Heritage Days last year. It was a Saturday. He was out there the entire day, maybe both days, I don't know. I'm with Mr. Wharton on the fairness to the fire department. I don't know much about it. I've just recently learned that their retirement age is 60, regardless of how many years they've worked there. Hope I got that right. Where the police department is, it's 25 years and they're out. So I think if they're going to be funded from the same fund, they should be treated fairly. I don't know. That seemed to be what they were in favor of when I met with some of the fire department. Not that I met with a lot of them. I've also mentioned before about traffic patrol. I'd like to see more of our officers out there. I know maybe we're short-staffed on that. I'm not being critical on them. You know, I just see a lot of stuff going on out there that could generate a lot of revenue. There's a lot of cars that, you know, are not worthy of being on the road or have tinted windows and blacked out all the way around. Don't know when that became legal. I just think that there could be a source of revenue there that maybe is not being accounted for. Anyhow, that's it. Thanks.
Any further comments? Any further comments? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to close the public hearing at 7:49. Support Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Aye. Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10, the regular agenda. First item up will be item 8B, pulled from the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the payment of bills as submitted?
I will make a motion to approve the bills with the exception of report ID number 259200406 that we do not make the payment to Big Boogie Entertainment in the amount of $1,037.50.
Support.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you. Well, let's deal with this elephant in the room right now and get it over with, because I knew it was coming. And I think it's time that, I'm grateful for it, by the way, because I think there was a general misunderstanding of what it was and what initiated it and how it was facilitated. So let me fill the board in on that. So this expense for $1,037.50 was facilitated due to a request by the Bureau of Elections and the Secretary of State asking local clerks through the county clerk to put together a program to promote early voting. This is an expense that is going to be paid for by a grant from the state of Michigan. We have already submitted, or in process of submitting now, the reimbursement for that grant. It goes along with all of the other reimbursements for early voting for the August primary that we are eligible for, as all municipalities are, for the state of Michigan. That includes the $15 per hour reimbursement to our election inspectors that is paid for early voting as well. So this was a state-sponsored, state-paid-for event that they asked for our cooperation in putting together. They left it up to the local clerks to determine what type of an event or an effort they would put forward to qualify for this grant. We had our first idea, which did not include this particular vendor, and they denied that. It did not fulfill the spirit of what they wanted. And so we went back to the drawing board, brought them back another idea, and that is the one that they approved. First went to the county clerk with this particular expense included and a breakdown of that expense. That was then sent up to the Secretary of State and the Bureau of Elections. They approved it, and then it came back down through those channels to us, and they, this was the event that they approved because they are paying for it. So the township, as most of our other events that we receive reimbursement for from the state or the federal government or any other entity, we have to cover those costs and then we submit for reimbursement. This is no different. This particular, vendor is the vendor that handles the personal appearance by Darren McCarty, who came and was present on that day for our residents. Again, that was the event that was approved by the Bureau of Elections. This is what they wanted. We made a suggestion, I made a phone call, we were able to put that together, and that is what they approved. So therefore, that is the event that we had. I'm happy to say it was very effective in that that day was in fact the highest turnout we had for the early voting period. So it did work. The state is looking for us to do this again for November, because there is a concerted effort and monies that have been allocated by the state to improve our early voting turnout. That's something that's an initiative that they have made a priority and they have asked for our cooperation with. So that is where that expense comes from. That expense is going to be reimbursed by the Secretary of State. It was already paid for. This vendor was paid, but with the use of our Comerica card. There's no reason why they shouldn't have been paid that way. We use that for various, as all other department heads do as well, Parks and Rec, Department of Public Safety. We all use that card for various approved expenditures. This was in our budget, and this was properly allocated. So we will be receiving that money back from the Secretary of State as soon as they process our reimbursement claim. And again, that was all pre-authorized, not only by the Secretary of State who's paying for it, but also by the county clerk who had to approve it as well. So again, we were just the facilitator, and this is no Chesterfield Township money that is being expended. This is state of Michigan money with their prior authorization. So.
Trustee Doing.
If I may, has any other board member seen any paper regarding this grant?
I'm sorry?
I'm addressing the whole board. Has any other board member seen any or heard of any paperwork regarding this authorization from the state, from this Department of Elections to pay this bill or hear about anything. This is the first I've heard of this. I'm asking my fellow board members if anyone's heard about this.
Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, I have a question after that, but at our election commission meetings, Clerk Berry said that we would be remunerated, township would be remunerated for the cost of the elections due to the changes, but I do have some questions about this specific item.
Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I was under the impression that there was a joint effort with the county, with Clerk Forlini. But I guess is it just a matter of timing then, in terms of like the comment being made that there was no township money involved? Why is it on our bill run? Like if it's a state grant, why not just, cover it out of that?
And the answer to that is we had to expense the money before we can get reimbursed. It's just like any other reimbursement we get for all of our other election expenses that are reimbursed to us. We have to expend that money, that we then have a form that's filled out, we submit it for reimbursement, and then they pay us.
Just a quick follow-up, Trustee Anderson, if I could. Just that expenditure, the vendor has already been paid. The fact that it's on our bill run, we would just not be paying the credit card company, or what would be the it's not a check, it was a credit card payment, if I understood you right, and that's been already transacted.
That's correct.
Trustee Anderson.
Just, probably the issue I have is with this specific athlete. I wish Clerk Berry, you would apprise the board of that appearance of this athlete or former athlete. He has appeared in this in this meeting hall in the past couple of years. There might have been issues he might have been supported. I don't know. I even complimented him on a great day back in '97 when he greeted Claude Lemieux to JLA. I loved it. At the same time, I'm wondering why his name comes up again at this time. Was there no other athletes or former athletes that were available, or local celebrities besides this individual? And getting back to my initial remark, I know there was some discussion about the election flyer that came out. I don't want to resurrect that. At the same time, this individual is included as, for whatever reason, I just believe this should have been shared with the board before it even went to print. Thank you.
Any further questions? Trustee Vosper.
Thank you. My question is regarding again, this particular issue. It did, as was stated, the Election Commission did know that some of this will be reimbursed, but we did not know that was never brought up, that the cost of an entertainer would be part of it. It was more the supplies, the materials, the cost of getting communication out there.
Yeah, and the answer to that is that was something that was brought up to us. We became aware of it at the Macomb County Clerks Association meeting when Clerk Forlini asked us, he informed us of this request, asked us to participate, and then we had a very short period of time to put something together. My understanding is that he waited for other counties to do similar things. I know the city of Ann Arbor, I think it's Washtenaw, they held a concert, for example. And then, so I think once it started to roll out in other counties, then he decided to participate and then asked for our cooperation. So it was a joint event. Unfortunately, Clerk Forlini couldn't be there, but he and his staff did participate in the promotion of that event at our Cheers to Chesterfield the day before. So he just had a scheduling conflict at the last minute. But yeah, it was something that was brought to us, I don't want to say last minute, but after our election commission meeting took place. But yeah, so we tried to participate the best that we could. We do have a series of emails back and forth with the state and the county in terms of how to facilitate this and facilitate it in a manner in which they wanted. Again, our first idea, quite frankly, they didn't like. The first idea we had was to kind of have a barbecue cookout, invite people to come and, you know, kind of have a barbecue with us, talk about early voting and try to get folks out, you know, with food. We wanted to ply them with food to come out and vote early. They didn't like that. They said that wasn't quite in the spirit of what they wanted. They wanted something more, that was more tailored specifically to early voting. So that is why we structured the event the way that we did. On the day that we did it, we made sure it was the first day of early voting and so on. We did promote it for a good month before, so if anyone had any questions about it, we would have been happy to answer them. But it didn't come to us through, I would say, normal channels. It came to us through a request from Clerk Ferlini at the Macomb County Clerks Association. So the City of St. Clair Shores, I believe, did a float. They put their money toward a float, I think, in one of their parades that they were having. A number of other communities, you know, chose to do other things, but this was the event that the state was able to approve for us. So,
Trustee Deming.
I want my motion to stand, but when we get the approval of an email from the state showing that they approved it, that they approve and they send us the money, then we pay.
we do have the approval via email. We do have that available for you. We can give you the reimbursement schedule along with all of the other early voting reimbursements that we are submitting.
That's fine, bring it,
But
when you.
we do have the email,
when we
yes, of
Bring it
course.
back to the next meeting, or when you have that, but it's right now, I say, no, until we see it in the email or black and white, my motion stands.
So your motion is to hold off on paying this? We've already paid it. We've already paid it on the
But-
purchase card. Okay.
See an email confirming and payment by the state. That's all
For
I'm
reimbursement.
asking.
I don't expect that the reimbursement, and perhaps our election coordinator, Mason Brzezinski, can give you a better idea on timeline for that reimbursement check.
Sorry, Mason, I didn't brief you ahead of time on that one.
Well, because he's the one processing the reimbursement, and so he has also been the one in contact with the state as well, specifically as to how they want that reimbursement submitted.
First of all, good evening, everyone. Obviously, it's becoming a contentious topic. The early voting grant reimbursement schedule has been lackluster at best. So before I came to Chesterfield, I worked for the Office of the Inspector General, and again, our merits are waste, fraud, and abuse. There was $2.5 million allocated from Macomb County between two waves of early voting, Wave 1 and Wave 2. And the back end of Wave 2, which we are in currently, had a promote the vote to it. The various communities in Macomb County had events. Some did it as obligatory to the county clerk, some did not. St. Clair Shores had a Memorial Day parade. They had the float. We had the Darren McCarty and then giving out the cookies at Brandenburg. With that in mind, the money has been alluded to that it would be reimbursed in December with all the other expenditures we're claiming for. So the county clerk here was given money from the state of Michigan. They put together the reimbursement claim, which has been approved. And you guys have that in your agenda item for the voting booths. And once that money is received by the clerk, it'll be parsed out to all the local units, and that's how we'd be reimbursed. For the entertainment venue, whatever the communities had did for early voting in August, it is to be reimbursed under the December schedule, so we're still looking multiple months out. However, the state of Michigan has a procurement schedule just like we do. You know, we go out for bid, we go out for quote. This should have gone out for quote. That was not revealed by the county clerk. However, I leveraged some of the people I know at the state to get an answer, and they did allude that because it's under a $1,500 figure that they're not going to ask for a request for quote. They'll pay the invoice as due, assuming it meets the merits of what they need. It needs a transaction date, it needs to be paid, it needs to be on some type of letterhead or account attributed to the township. So the idea that this will be resolved by next board meeting, I will not promise you that. Again, the clerk himself, you know, he's an elected figure. He's not an accountant, and he's not doing election administration every day. He leaves that up to his bureaucrats below him. And again, what's been signaled to us is that all is well. However, again, I'm not going to commit here and say everything is, peachy, because again, I don't have anything that is going to solidly say you will be reimbursed by the next board meeting. But again, it has been alluded to that we did everything correctly in the sense of the event was approved, the county clerk approved it, and we paid the vendor. So as it stands right now, it looks like everything is fine, but again, It's all based on how these grants get written through between OIG as well as the reimbursement unit. We had HAVA grant from 2021 that took a year and a half to conclude. So again, these things do take time, but the state is meaningful in getting the money back to the local unit because we did outlay these costs. It's gonna be a similar thing when we get to the voting booth topic. Well, it's okay, we're asking for money here. Again, it will be recaptured. Treasurer Elliott can speak to it as well as accounting. Like the school elections, we reimburse the total cost for that, excess time, so overtime for F&O, us, all the supplies. We do recapture it, but there is a turnaround there. It's not quite 30 days. Sometimes things get contested. They go to the school board has issue, and the same thing is an exclusionary for the state.
So just, because I'd like to point out something which is important to your point, Trustee Demink, is that we don't get reimbursed until we pay it. So if we choose not to pay it, that may affect our reimbursement as well. They will not reimburse us until we pay the bill.
Trustee Wells.
Well, this invoice has already been paid. A credit card was used, so the invoice has been paid. So that's, to me, that's not an issue. I have a question to Mr. Siebert, our attorney. Should the motion be reworded in a different way? I think that the intent, if I should ask you first, but it sounded like the intent is, this didn't seem like a type of expense that would come from this fund without us having some prior knowledge as to all the things that were just explained now by Clerk Barry. But I'm thinking if we don't pay this, that part of the bill, we will be paying service charges on the credit card. So how can this be addressed?
My understanding from listening to the board discussion is it's already been paid. It's on your credit card. Is the bill due yet? Has the bill for the credit card company been paid?
They're automatically pulled. You're not gonna run into late fees or anything. The credit card payments are already automatically pulled. So you're not gonna be an issue. I think the question is if we don't have it on the bill run, if we say we approve the bill run minus this one item, and we won't approve this item until we have the grant funding paperwork in December, I don't really see a problem with that. Do you, and I think that's the question that, am I correct, that Trustee Vosberg's asking?
Do I see a legal problem with it? No. But again, I'm not privy to this reimbursement from the state. I have no clue what Tony Forlini did. I have no clue what the Bureau of Elections or the Secretary of State promised or didn't promise. At the end of the day, the question is whether or not it's a legitimate expenditure of public funds. And if the clerk is telling you that the county clerk approved it and the Secretary of State through the Bureau of Elections has approved it, you know, what you might think of it, if they've approved it, it's clear under Michigan law that the Bureau of Elections is the supervisor and directs local units on all election procedures. And if they're going to give you money for an event that you may think is inappropriate, that's their decision to make, not yours. So I don't think there's anything illegal about it. Whether there should have been advance notice is a political issue that's not something I'm going to get into.
All right, if I understand both comments, from a technical standpoint, the bill has already been paid. Nothing gets withheld from paying the bank for that credit card. So then it seems to me that it would be appropriate. Doesn't hurt anything to approve, or you know what Trustee Demink has proposed in his motion. Seems like that's a legitimate proposal. Thank you.
Along with seeing the email and the paperwork to back it up. That's all I'm asking. That it can be forwarded all to 6 of us.
I guess my question is, what would that mean? I mean, what are we saying? We've already paid the vendor, and we're going to pay the credit card. So when we say we're not paying it, I'm not sure what that would mean.
Mr. Supervisor?
Mr. Trustee Wilson.
I think it's pretty much, after hearing from our attorney, it's pretty much a ceremonial vote. We either approve this motion or another motion, but the reality is the bill's been paid. I think Trustee Demink has made the point that he would like to see confirmation. The clerk has agreed to provide that, and I would just move to call the question.
I'm fine with that. Just provide information to the 6 other board members from the elections and everything else, so that all 6 of us.
Let me back up. Can we, so your motion's going to be to pay the invoice, which has already been done. You just want the documents as Clerk Barry has described, request from the Secretary of State, reimbursement from the state sponsor, those emails to be attached to the payment request.
That's correct, and that all those 6 board members receives it.
That's
Include
Continued support.
That's easy enough. That's very easy to do.
Any further discussion? I have a motion by Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Anderson, to approve item 8A with the previous stated attachments. Do you have them, Clerk Barry?
Yes.
The documents requesting or to
The
to
emails.
support
Yep. Yes.
the request.
All the supporting documentation, yes, to be provided to the board.
Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Trustee Demink. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
No.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10A, regular agenda.
Item 10A is to approve the establish of the estimate of cost to provide police and fire protection as determined by the Township Board and the amount of special assessment levy, as well as direct the Township Supervisor to spread the assessment levy on the taxable value of all lands and premises within the district for the year 2025 and adopt resolution number 2024-16.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Support. Trustee Joseph, support. Ms. Bauer?
Hello. This is the Public Safety 2025 estimate of cost. The millage rate that is proposed is 7.95. That is the same rate that we currently have. This will generate approximately $17,937,000. The estimate of cost, both the summary and the detailed list, was provided in the board packet. As you know, every year, this is not the budget. This is, again, the estimate of cost. The budget will go in front of the board for more detailed scrutiny, along with every other department 2025 budget.
Director Bassett, go ahead. If I was interrupted, I didn't.
Thank you. I just wanted, a little bit off topic, but I want to thank, about an hour ago, less than an hour ago, we had a pretty significant storm come through here. I want to thank all of the dispatchers, officers, firefighters who were out there. We had countless calls. All of the systems worked properly. We still have a lot of trees down, a lot of power lines, but at this point we have 0 injuries, and I'm happy to report that. In regards to the matter here tonight, as the Public Safety Group looks at how we determine our request, for our staffing methods, we use National Fire Protection Association, or the NFPA standards. We review the per capita staffing. We take a look at our workload analysis of how often our members are busy, how often our members are available. We look to minimum staffing requirements, both in contract and agreed upon with the bargaining units. We compare ourselves with other agencies, both regionally and throughout the business. When we're making these determinations, we also do a data review for calls for service, accident investigations, tickets issued, other metrics that show a consistent demand for public safety, which has continued to increase over the last 5 years. In conclusion, deciding our staffing levels is complex, influenced by community needs, service expectations, population, geographic challenges. And given the township's growth and increasing demands, our pattern of growth has been cautious but slow, and we continue to see that moving forward. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph?
Thank you, Director Bassett. I appreciate you touching on the staffing issue. As you know, that's come up a few times, and we've talked about it during our public safety advisory. There are a number of schools of thought in terms of how you're policing and how you make decisions regarding, minimum staffing. I think for really, and maybe some of the, I know Supervisor Kersten and I have had this discussion. He took over a department where we had come from arguably unsafe numbers, and we were looking at serious concerns about funding and how to maintain a level of staffing that didn't compromise, officer safety. And I'm talking about the PD side of public safety. So to be mindful of the population in the per capita, but also the business community and our daily population, if you will, and what does that look like, and does that present additional risks and need for more staffing? I know that there's a lot of attention paid to the CAD system, and our computer-aided dispatch spits out a lot of data that can really be, harvested to look at what levels of staffing at what times per day, at what days of the week, and so there is a lot that goes into it, and maybe we can talk more about it during budget time with regard to what we anticipate the need for firefighters and police personnel. But I think the 7.95 Special Assessment District has served us well with property values coming back. We're beginning to get close to where we were previous to the downturn. And I think the general feeling in the community regarding our public safety team, I credit a lot of it to the work that's done by the Friends of Chesterfield Police and the countless number of ambassadors that are now advocating for our public safety teams as a result of the Citizens Academy and the Junior Citizens Academies. The open house certainly is a big hit every year, and we attract thousands of residents to see hands-on the equipment and the personnel who operate that with proficiency. All of the comments tonight, I think, were generally very positive. I do note that there were a couple of issues that got into contract language and the apparent disparity between retirement rates, and those, from my experience, come from industry standards and fire department versus police department. So the fact that we have them under the public safety umbrella doesn't stop what we said we were going to hold true to, which was the core sort of functions and compensation that is an industry standard. I would note that we modeled our public safety kind of melding together after the Canton Township, and so we adopted a lot of those, and they still continue to have contractual differences. It's not as if the contracts become instantly the same. So in really all areas, from the public support and the financial kind of scrutiny that I'm very, very comfortable with the leadership right now, and we do need, I think, to fine-tune a little bit directionally what we're doing. I like the supervisor's comments with regard to the north end and a fire station there. So this is quite a bit of work to do. And lastly, I would just point out what a miraculous change that you've encountered in terms of the relationships that was spoken to by one of the presenters at the podium, because it was just a year and a half or 2 years ago we were warned about rookie cops and itchy trigger fingers and the danger that they pose to people of color, and to hear that the relationships have been mended in such a way that there's just joy in the community as it relates to public safety is really a fine attribute. Again, I don't know if it's your work or the fact that the overzealous rookie cops didn't take too kindly of it, or the fact that it's an election year, but in any event, we now have peace and joy, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Any further comments? Any further comments? Clerk Berry.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I need to advise the board that we did receive 2 letters of protest. And this could have actually been done under the public hearing, but wait till the board agenda item. We received 2 letters of protest against the public safety SAD. One was received from Paul S. Lafata, 48055 Mailer Drive, Chesterfield Township, and the other was an unnamed anonymous letter with no address. So we simply recorded that another letter of protest was received, however, that is not associated with any parcel of the township.
Thank you. Again, the model that Trustee Joseph worked very hard and dedicated himself years back in the 2017 to get us where we are today, and everyone on the board at the time, to, as he described, put it in a position of comfort where it is now, and respectability and staffing levels, schedules, all of those things are addressed in labor agreements, and we settled that labor agreements with them last year. Obviously, they'll be coming up again soon, so that's always a topic that we'll discuss, and moving the Public Safety Department forward is always on top of, I believe, everybody's agenda, including mine, and I appreciate everything you've done, Director Bauer and Director Bassett. With that being said, we have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 10A. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10B.
Item 10B is approval of a special event application by First State Bank to host an employee field day at Brandenburg Park on Sunday, September 29th, 2024.
So moved.
Support.
Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Ms. Vanderson.
This is a special event application to utilize Brandenburg Park. They're requesting the indoor pavilion and Pavilion A. The special event will happen Sunday, September 29th. It's not a public event, but one that's more of a private rental for their employees and families, coming from First State Bank. On our side of things, we would have a staff person there to open the facilities, open the bathrooms for this group, and be there for the day to make sure that they have everything they need.
Discussion for the board. I know a guy that runs the bank, so do you want to talk to him, or?
No, I don't want to talk to him, man.
Okay.
I don't like his barber.
Trustee Joseph.
I don't like his barber. But I would just say that First State Bank does a tremendous amount of work in this township. They're at every one of our township events, from the cruise to just anything that they can do to sponsor Parks and Rec, the Historic Village, and I really appreciate them. I hope they have a great day, and really appreciate their partnership with our community. Thank you.
Any further comments? Trustee Foster, Treasurer Elliott, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a couple of questions. It says on the application, yes, we would like to rent indoor building that provides a temperature-controlled space, 10 tables, 60 chairs, with bathroom facilities from 1 to 5. And it says for about 300 people. Is this being rented?
Yes, we would have them
Okay.
pay the rental fees for both the building and Pavilion A. Outside of what the word said here, because of the number of people, they did request that additional facility too.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any further questions? I have a motion by Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10B. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Mr. Noy, I wish you a sunny day. Item 10C.
Item 10C is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint Holly Kersten to the Parks and Recreation Commission with a term ending September 1, 2027.
So moved.
Trustee Demink. Support. Trustee Joseph. Ms. Vanderson.
Holly has been the second longest standing member on our Parks and Rec Commission, and she's worked with us very closely. She attends several of our special events, both to volunteer and on behalf of the library as well. So happy to have her again.
Discussion? We have a motion by Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 10C. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10D.
Item 10D is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to reappoint Bob Cuss to the Beautification Commission and Tree Board with a term ending September 1, 2027.
So moved.
Support.
Trustee Joseph, Clerk Barry, support. Michelle?
Well, Rob is one of the newest members added on. He was fulfilling an existing term, and so he's right back again to have that reappointment. But so far, we've been very happy with him, and he's been able to offer a lot of great suggestions for beautification.
Thank you. Discussion. I have a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Clerk Barry, to approve item 10D. Clerk Barry.
Trustee Joseph. Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10E.
Item 10E is a recommendation to approve the general terms of the lease between Chesterfield Township and Anchor Bay School District for an agreement to lease 15,486 square feet at a rate of $2.72 per square foot annually at a total cost of $42,121.92 and authorize Supervisor Kersten to sign a revised lease.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Karen?
So this is, the Anchor Bay School District came to Chesterfield Township asking if they could lease the space of the one side of the wing that we are not utilizing. The reason for the ask is that their GSRP program is still licensed in that side of the building, and they could not get their license transferred in enough time for school to start. I did put a diagram of the building up on the screen here. The first 3 classrooms on their bottom right, left-hand corner, you'll see that there's Head Start on those 3 classrooms, and then Anchor Bay, we did talk with them about leasing the whole left side and putting up a wall. So I know that there were some comments that children would be on the other side of the building, and that is not true. We would actually be putting up a wall so the children in their GSAP program and the children in the Head Start program would all be on one side of the building. The school district did also agree to rent the whole space, even though they needed just some of the classrooms, so that they could help their partners, the Head Start program, because Head Start is utilizing the 3 classrooms, but they would like some storage. So Anchor Bay has agreed to, if this lease went through, give Head Start some extra storage and some of their classrooms to utilize as well. The lease that I sent the board is the same lease that we had with the school district. So that's where we got the price from. What we would be charging them is what they charged us, and all the terms are pretty much the same. Attorney Seaburn and I did speak about the lease, and he did say that he would work with their attorney to just tweak a couple things that we wanted additional in there, and that was just them supplying some landlines, them giving Head Start an extra classroom for storage, them utilizing the classrooms instead of the gym for the gross motor skills, and then just some janitorial stuff, making sure that they can take care of their own janitorial. I do have the assistant superintendent here, Todd Rathburn, and he can answer any additional questions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Any questions, Clerk Barry?
So is this lease then just going to be in place until they can transfer somewhere else, or is this perpetual?
It would be, they're looking to lease it till August 31st of 2025. So it looks like this school year, but I can have Mr. Rathburn kind of answer the question a little bit further.
Good evening, board. Thank you for allowing me to come before you tonight. Yes, we are looking for a 1-year lease until we are able to license the alterations that were made at a different location.
Thank you. The reason for the question is that obviously we have an APO in place for the sale and lease of property, so we would be deviating from that and essentially violating our own policy or agreeing to do that in order to accommodate, which I think this board wants to be helpful in that and understands the position that the school district is in. We don't want to be problematic there, but just so that the public and the board is aware is that we do have an APO. We would be foregoing that in order to make the accommodation, but for a year, I'm happy to do it for you.
Any further questions? Treasurer Elliott.
Mr. Rathburn, how many students are serviced?
There will be 64 students that are serviced by the GSRP program, and then I am not exactly sure how many Head Start students there will be, but there's 3 classrooms, so probably in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 students in Head Start.
I think Head Start was 51, was that? Yeah, Head Start was 51. So this agreement services over 100 kids, 110 kids. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Vosper.
Thank you. We received an email this afternoon from Karen and said that our attorney didn't have time to look at these additional items, but you're saying these 8 items that were in the email, they will be part of the
Yes, so Attorney
contract?
Siebert and I did speak on it, because of the timeline, with the school district. It was a very crunch timeline trying to get everything, on there. So, when we spoke today, Attorney Siebert said that he would work with their attorney to make sure that the lease was drafted, adding the items.
Okay. Mr. Rathbun, that's your opinion that those will also be incorporated, that you two
Yes, I
agree?
think, we want to flesh out a little bit more on some of the maintenance costs, but other than that, we're in agreement on all the other terms.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
First thing, Karen, great job. You're the messenger. You did a great job. You're kind of put in a crazy position. That's really appreciated. One of the issues that comes up here a lot is in your field, sir, is separating the children from the public. You know, the email had it. You are constructing our barriers there to ensure that as long as you're using that program for the year here, the public will be segregated and vice versa. Any crossing back and forth from that area set aside for the children, correct?
Yes, that is correct. You can see that easternmost side of the school will be isolated. There's a wall that will be put in the middle of that hallway. Our students will not be utilizing any other part of the facility. We will be practicing in some of the larger classrooms the gross motor skills. So, and all of our students will be entering from that front easternmost door so that they will not be going through the other part of the building.
Okay, the other thing is the expenditure here, I believe from the email, the only concern, or there might be utilities, there might still be an issue, but as far as custodial and everything else, that'll be Anchor Bay School District's responsibility, correct?
That's correct. We'll provide our own custodial.
Thank you.
Trustee Jones.
Yeah, I just was curious, on the wall, who's paying for the wall?
Anchor Bay School.
And then the question that I had for you, Mr. Rathburn, was when we talked to the Head Start folks from the county, I met with their team, and the licensing provisions are really stringent, and they estimated that at the time that they were dealing with the change of venue or the location, they couldn't have done it, that they wouldn't have had enough time. And I asked them, why didn't you plan? And the answer was really a little bit complicated, and depending on whether or not they felt they weren't informed by us or by you, but at any rate, I thought with the transition, there was plenty of room for that to be an oversight. They thought that they had a secure building. They were under that impression, so they didn't engage in a licensing. You sold the building. Why don't you know? Why didn't you know that you needed a 12-week lead time and prepare for this? Because we've been leasing the building for you for well over a year in anticipation of taking over the building. So why didn't you know?
I'll be happy to address that, sure. So when we initially entered into the lease agreement, the school is leasing the space to Chesterfield, we initially entered into a 3-year lease. That lease period was going to provide us plenty of time to alter other facilities and be able to get that licensing in place to move those classrooms that were at Sugar Bush to a different location. The Chesterfield Township came to us and asked if we could move that purchase up by a couple years, and so we were happy to accommodate that and work with them. They've been great partners with us. And so during that period of time, we did have some discussions about how accelerating that purchase period was going to impact us potentially in terms of being able to get all of our licensing in place before the start of the school year. And we did have some preliminary discussions about this maybe being a requirement just because we could not get all of those in place. There are very specific licensing requirements for different programs. Head Start has a different licensing program than GSRP. They are not the same, they're different. And so I know once we received word that Chesterfield was interested in purchasing that, that's when we reached out to Head Start and indicated to them that we would be selling the building and that they may need to contact Chesterfield directly to see if they would be able to lease that space.
What's your estimate of the licensing lead time that you need to get the alternative location through the licensing process?
We're very close. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to make it by about a month.
So what I'm saying,
it's
in
about
total,
it's about a 4 or 5 month process.
It's a couple months longer than the Head Start folks, but why not request a lease agreement to get you through the proper venue, which is, I'm assuming it's in another elementary school or another building that you own. Why not an amended lease to get you through maybe one semester and get the kids to a more appropriate place?
I believe that's what we're attempting to do tonight, is to get that lease in place so that we have a spot for our kids to start the school year. Depending on when that licensing comes through, we're hopeful that it'll be in a month or so.
Yeah.
But if it isn't, we want to make sure that we have space for that classroom for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, as I heard Karen lay it out, the lease goes through August of 2025, which in essence is the school year. You're saying that you could have your licensing approval within a month or so, and it is your intention then to move the kids to the permanent location?
Not at this point. We don't want to.
No, not at this point, at the point that licensing approves. Once licensing approves, you said you're about a month shy. Would you then look to maybe at the quarter break or the semester break, move to the new location?
There has been some discussion about moving to the new location at the semester break over Christmas, because it would take some period of time for us to be able to move those classrooms, redo our bus routes. There's quite a bit to it, and so there's been some discussion, but nothing has been determined yet.
Okay, thank you. The bus routes leads me to my next question. Is there bus service for these children at Sugar Bush?
Yes, sir.
And so I really don't have any additional questions, although I will say to you from a comment standpoint, whoever negotiated the deal on behalf of the school district did a phenomenal job, because you took a building with tremendous liability and you sort of mitigated your exposure to all of this time last year we were leasing space from you for $272. Now you're leasing it to us for the same basic operation, and you have none of the liability. I mean, that really is quite a brilliant move from a real estate perspective, but I thought, at least it was pitched to us, that the $272 rate was a rate that was commensurate with the cost of maintenance. That when we were in negotiations, even internally with our library, and we were looking at cost per square foot, somewhere between $3 and $5, depending on how, was the cost of just maintaining the building, whether anybody was in there or not. And the library committee got real hung up on what their cost would be, but $272 is nowhere near the commercial rate for that type of building. And the last thing that I would point out, which has nothing to do with you, is we've been, as you can see, then the temperature in this room is quite warm. The renovations that we're undergoing here have had a ripple effect, and it's displaced our senior center. Our seniors are now working, programming and working out in the community center, and we formed a committee to talk with them about communication and being up to date with them in terms of communicating what that building would be and all the challenges associated. And I'm not looking forward to our next meeting because, at our July meeting, we talked to them about the Head Start issue that was before us, and now 18,000 square feet with bus service and traffic. I'm glad to hear that there will be a wall, separating the operations, but in terms of navigating the building, which is difficult for some of our seniors, it's going to be a real challenge, and I'm not in favor of this for the reasons I stated. Thank you.
Any further questions? Trustee Domingue.
I got a couple. Michelle, I'm going to need you up at the podium, please. Sorry I didn't give you a heads up on this one. Is this going to work for you? Is it still going to work for all your programming with the seniors, and the seniors be totally separate? So you've been to the meetings with Trustee Joseph and Supervisor and I, because we know how the seniors, didn't want to intermingle with the kids. So, I mean, is this going to work for the security, where the kids are on one side, the seniors and all the other programs are going to be on our side?
Correct, yeah, we see no impact to any of the existing programming or planned future programming that we have within this timeframe.
And the only other question, especially where Trustee Joseph went there, I'll bring it up, is the gentleman from the schools brought up bus service, because we don't want the buses over by, because we're restriping the lot, doing away with those bus lanes in front of that, and put more handicap parking, let's say 2/3 in front of the building and the other third where they're at. Is that still our intention? And with Anchor Bay schools, that wherever they're going to drop off these kids with the bus, they're going to be way over there, away from the seniors and from the other? Okay.
Yep, yeah, I'm glad you bring it up. So the parking lot, our striping plan does not change at all.
Okay.
Anchor Bay is able to accommodate within our plan, so they do not need the existing bus lanes. They're actually going to be dropping curbside closer to this door. It's door 3, which is on the left side of the building. So all the bus drop-off will be on their side, their wing of the building, and it will not affect our programming side, other than a bus driving by.
And we still got enough parking for all our seniors
Correct.
and handicap, because we know what that was, correct, Trustee Joseph? Okay.
Yeah, enhanced.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Treasurer Elliott.
What time is bus drop-off in the morning?
For our GSRP programming begins at 9 a.m.
Okay, it's at 9 a.m. And then it's over at what time?
I believe it's 3:30.
3:30. Okay. So and that's 5 days a week. It's a normal school schedule?
Yeah, those classrooms will be 5 days a week.
Okay. And then, so that wall is going to be erected there where the blue ends and there's that opening. And then the only entrance into that area is going to be there where the blue is at the very bottom of that diagram. Is that correct?
Yes, that's where our students will be entering. There is also an exit, at the very top opposite of that door 3, but our students will be entering right where Karen's pointing.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10E. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
No.
Trustee Domingue? Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10F. Thank you, Mr. Rathburn. Appreciate your time.
Item 10F is to adopt Resolution 2024-17, which authorizes Chesterfield Township to apply for the Macomb County Public Art Program through PIPA, Partners in Public Art, with the goal of being considered for a public art partnership at Fire Station Number 3, located at 23 Mile and Baker.
So moved.
Trustee Joseph, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Unless somebody else wanted to do it. Karen?
So this grant was brought to us by a resident, and we do have a bunch of municipalities surrounding us that are taking advantage of it. This is actually the resolution attached is to be able to apply for the grant. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna get the grant. One of the places that was recommended to us was this wall that covers the generator at the fire station for a mural, but that's just wasn't a recommendation. I also attached, this is one of the murals that Mount Clemens just had done, and this is one that Rochester Hills just did, and this is the one from St. Clair Shores. I believe New Baltimore just had one done as well that they just revealed last week.
Questions or comments from the board? Clerk Berry?
I'm somewhat familiar with these types of programs, but for this particular one, who would make the decision on what actually ends up going on that mural? Is it a committee that they have set up through this particular organization, or would that come to the board, or how does that work?
I believe we would bring that back to the board.
Thank you.
Trustee Vosberg?
Thank you. Follow up to the question, whatever the design might be, you said you bring it back for our approval, or we would be the ones deciding what we want on it?
We would bring it back for your approval. This is just to apply for the grant. So this doesn't guarantee that we're going to get it, but in order to apply for it, we have to bring it in front of the board, and we have to get this resolution passed in order to apply for it.
The thing we want to apply to have, but I guess my understanding of the previous question was how does the actual design get selected?
So the design, so we can pick, we can choose an artist, or we can go through the DIA to choose an artist, and then I believe we work with the artist on what we would like to see.
Okay, but we get final approval.
Yep.
The township gets final approval.
Yep.
All right. Then how does that work in terms of the life of the mural? Because they are outdoors, it does get weathered. Is that, once it's up, is that our responsibility to maintain it and or decide at what point it will be painted over?
Yes, so it does, it is a 10-year life expectancy, and we would have to maintain it for the 10 years.
All right. Does that include, we would at our own cost have to maintain it? It doesn't include maintaining it for those 10 years?
It does not.
Okay. Just, not to say not do it, but just wanted to know how
Yeah,
that works.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? A motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 10F. Clerk Berry?
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Demink? Aye. Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott? Aye. Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10G.
Item 10G is to approve a request by the Human Resources Department to renew the Power DMS cloud-based management platform module contract for 3 years, beginning 11/17/2024 through 11/15/2027, for a total cost of $37,615.05.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Joseph? Mr. Kerr?
Good evening. Like Cindy Berry said, this is for our Power DMS system module. Currently, Human Resources uses this to house our township APOs and HR manuals. All of this is for non-public safety employees. Public safety has their own system. They use that for their accreditation process, so this is a separate module. This is the second 3-year renewal for us. Our first 3-year just ended, so this is going to be a second 3-year coming up in November.
Questions from the board? Clerk Berry?
So I understand that in relatively short order here, we are going to be receiving or have already received a new human resources director. I don't know if that individual is actually in place yet, but my concern is that if the new human resource director should perhaps be consulted on this before we make a decision to commit to a 3-year program. He might want to change programs. Maybe he may want to expand it or make some other choices on that. I'm not sure. I just didn't know if we've gotten input from that individual or.
We're not going to change.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Mr. Supervisor, just to expound on that if I could. When we made the decision to bring in the DMS cloud-based, we can't acquiesce to the new HR director. I would think that the HR director that comes in that benefits from a top-notch software program acclimates to us. This is the system that we're using, and this is a renewal. This isn't the cost of the program. The cost of the program was, quite substantial. So when we approved that original purchase, we did so to be, I wouldn't even say state-of-the-art, but certainly leaps and bounds above where we were going. If we retool the entire database because of the HR director, I think you do have the tail wagging the dog. So this is a renewal, and it sounds like it's necessary, so I'm for it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Right? Trustee DeMing. Thank you. Trustee DeMing.
I'm good with this. I've had dealings with Power DMS and my prior employer, and we had it for years for information and training, so it's a good system. I'm good with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 10G. Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10H.
Approve a recommendation by Public Services to award the Chesterfield Interceptor Rehabilitation Phase 2 project to the lowest responsible bidder, DVM Utilities, Inc., in the amount of $2,945,500 for a total project cost of $5 million, covered by state grant funds.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support? Support. Trustee Vosberg. Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening. This item was at the previous board meeting. We provided some additional information, including this map, which is the entire township and the 3 sub-districts that we have connected to Macomb County. But it also, in red, highlights the areas that tie directly into the Chesterfield Interceptor. And land-wise, it's about 1/3 of the township. Most of the area is undeveloped, except for the veins right next to it. But you can see, like in the area parallel to 26 Mile Road, that is undeveloped at that time. But ultimately, it's going to serve about 1/3 of the township. Right now, it has about 3,000 taps, which is roughly like 6,000 to 7,000 people are tapped into that sewer right now. We also, and then we also have the grant information, the $5 million grant that was awarded to the township. And this project is being funded through and by the grant, including the engineering, which some grants, 23 Mile Road, the engineering wasn't funded through the grant. So this grant covers engineering and construction costs.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I just, a couple of comments, really. The criticism about the, tied 3 to 3 and then a rubber stamp, I don't see it that way, in the sense that our APO is silent on ties in terms of what we do when we have a missing board member and it results in a 3-3 tie. I think that this project of this magnitude, you're dealing with millions of dollars. I don't think it's improper to bring back for full board consideration. However, I think the comment about our APO is worth noting. And so when we have situations, I think we should speak to it in our APO about what we want to do Robert's rules is fairly clear. This technically would be a failed motion. A motion to reconsider can come about with new information, or one of the dissenting votes says, I'd like to reconsider it. We don't have those provisions in our APO. I think we should tighten that up. It would save us a lot of problems. Again, I don't have a problem with, a 3-3 deadlock, although it technically is a failed motion, to come back for a definitive answer. The only issue that I had, which was problematic, was I don't like social media posts. In particular, Mr. Supervisor, it was a member of your office that posted, why would anybody vote against a grant money? And the answer to that, Ms. Garby, is that the grant money doesn't take into account the full project. This is, as Mitch said, it covers the engineering and so forth of this particular phase. The total project cost was in excess of $11 million, and by the time we get done with the remaining phases, could go higher with the cost of, per unit pricing going up. So I was opposed to the acceptance of this, and, we don't need to relitigate that, and that's the reason for my no vote on that. It wasn't to turn down grant money. It was simply to say I'm not in favor of the project to begin with from the beginning, and I'm just remaining consistent with that in my no votes. Thank you.
Thank you. I was also asked about the results and the votes, and I have no problem with anyone questioning my vote. I'd be happy to explain it. So there was a bit of a misunderstanding, and I think, yes, some of the social media comments muddy waters and put words in people's mouths and things of that nature, and that's not good. So we need to speak for ourselves. And for myself, my no vote, and I spoke with Mitch O'Connor right before the meeting to let him know, my issue was that I've requested the grant paperwork a couple of times, and I haven't gotten it. So I don't know what the strings are that are attached, and I think sometimes you think that I might have gotten it, but then I get left off emails and stuff like that. So if I missed it, it's my bad, but I have asked for it a couple of times just to see the terms. My experience has been, even especially because we deal with a lot of grant money as well, is that usually that comes with strings attached or some kind of a matter. So that was the reason for my no vote. I just wanted to review a couple of the terms of the grant agreement, and I didn't have an opportunity to do that. So, but I agree with Trustee Joseph that we do have to revise our board rules. Don't act surprised. That we need to revise our board rules because the way that they sit now, and we've had numerous issues come up over the past several years since we changed those rules and took Robert's rules out, is that basically anything can be brought back over and over and over and over again with no amendments, no changes. So what's the point of even having a motion to reconsider? It becomes moot. It becomes absolutely irrelevant. So it's kind of like just try and try again. So I think Robert's rules is a good thing to reevaluate when regarding this. I don't want to get off topic too much of the other to say that I agree with Trustee Joseph. We need to tighten that up a little bit. It worked. Robert's rules worked well for a long time, and then I'm not sure why I forgot why we dropped them. I think we had a reasoning, but I think we have some unintended consequences. So not a big deal. I'm not criticizing anyone else's vote. They're entitled to their votes. But that was the reason for mine. So looking forward to voting on this item again here for clarity. Thanks.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. How many residents does this service?
Yeah, it's about 3,000 taps, so roughly, figure 2 to 3 people per tap, maybe 6,000 to 7,000 people currently.
Okay, so 3,000 taps, is that what you
Yeah.
said? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. And the fan's going, so I don't hear so well. So we've got 3,000 taps that are serviced by this line, and the grant actually is encompassing of the expenses of repairing this. Is that correct?
Right,
That's what you said.
Yeah, it includes the construction cost and the engineering cost.
Okay.
Which some
Yeah.
grants don't include what they call the soft
Right.
costs, which are
So
engineering.
this is all encompassing,
All encompassing.
which is a really good grant. I think that's what you're
Yeah.
saying. Right. So, so the fact is so will there be additional expenses that this grant will cover? Will there be another phase that this will cover?
No, the grant is for 5 million, and this phase, if you go to the bid tab, is for roughly 15,000 feet of sewer. But if we spend, for points of reference, the Chesterfield Interceptor is about 32,000 feet long. There's 32,000 feet of sewer from 21 to roughly 26 Mile Road. So phase one we completed last year was 2,000 feet roughly, the worst 2,000 feet, so that's done. This phase was bid for 15,000 feet, but if we spend every penny of the grant up to 5 million, we'll get 24,000 feet of sewer lined. So out of the 32,000, we're gonna line 24,000 with this grant, and we lined 2,000 with phase one. So there'd roughly be, 6,000 feet of sewer unlined on this project. The sewer was rated in 2017, then was re-rated in 2021, I believe. So we were able to capture kind of the rate of deterioration, and we're lining it in accordance with the pipes that need the attention now. The unlined portion, which is the furthest north portion, we have time on that, probably 3 to 5 years before we have to address that pipe. So we have time to get additional funding, I guess.
Okay. And then you've included the first page of the grant agreement, is that correct? The other pages had some information on it that we would have to redact. But you did put that because I believe I had spoke with Clerk Barry about this issue, and so that was included, and I hope that gave you time to be able to look at that grant application, that grant agreement.
It's not the entire grant agreement. We attached the cover page of the grant, kind of gave the parameters on, the beginning date, the end date, and the amount of the grant.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Just again, looking at this project, I still go back to the genesis. I don't want to rehash the whole thing. Probably 5 years ago when it was offered to the township from the county. It was less than $2 million of the repairs. This board turned it down. The county still was a couple years down the road before it had become property of the township, and it was supposed to be good. My understanding is good repair. And a year and a half ago, or about a year ago, February, the board majority accepted this project with $11 million repairs at that time. That's the issue I have with. I know that the votes are here tonight to ensure that our residents don't suffer because of the judgment of this board. Thank you.
Further questions? Have a motion by Supervisor Kersten. Trustee Vosberg, I'm sorry.
A follow-up to what was previously stated, my understanding is that even if we had not accepted this, we would still be paying for the repair because we are the users of it, we would be billed for that work. Am I correct?
That is correct. This is a Chesterfield Township pipe. We acquired it. It is on us to repair it. We have residents that use it, and it is in need of repair. Again, not to rehash all the years of conversation up here at the board, the money that we are expending tonight is earmarked from both the state and federal government to repair this, line it, and these are earmarks with no strings attached, direct funding sources from both the federal government and the state of Michigan. And we're simply asking, the request tonight is simply to use the $5 million to complete phase 2 of it. Again, which the bid came in at 2.945. We have $5 million of grant funding, earmark funding, so we're going to exceed what we had projected. And again, it secures a pipe and puts it in a condition that our residents are using, currently using, and will use in the future. Any development that goes in that area, this is a key transmission line, so it's ours.
Mr. Supervisor?
Trustee Joe.
Yeah, I was good to just stay quiet on this, but just to clear up, it was the North Gratiot Interceptor before it was the Chesterfield Interceptor, similar to the way the lagoon properties became Monarch Meadows. And so there was a concerted effort that went on for quite some time. There are those of us that don't believe that we got a fair shake in this. And in terms of the question that was posed by Trustee Vosberg, the hours now, I think you're right, it is a moot point. It is hours now, but the decision to make it hours came after we could have been in a different venue to argue why we felt that the other communities that benefited from this sewer pipe for most of its active life got away with putting their sewer on our tap. And again, we don't need to have this discussion every time, but let's not sort of gloss over the fact that it's the Chesterfield interceptor without also paying some respect to the point that was made, which is we will continue to obligate to this repair of this pipe, not for $5 million, but for at least $11 million, and that was a decision that is reached by the board majority. So I think that Trustee Anderson's comments were factual, as were yours, but it doesn't make his, unheard.
Not diminishing anybody's, it's time to move on. Pipes buried in Chesterfield. Clerk Berry?
Just one last question, just so that I'm clear. So there is nothing that this board or a future board could ever do that would cause us to have to repay this money. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10H. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. No.
Item 10I.
Item 10I is to approve a request by the Election Department to purchase an additional 25 voting booths from Election Source in the amount not to exceed $7,500.
So move.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Anderson, supported by Clerk Berry. Mason?
We are requesting to get another 25 voting booths to beat the horse that is grant funding tonight. It's grant funding. We have to outlay the capital for it. We will be reimbursed in December. In this packet, the email is there from Macomb County Chief Election Officer Michael Grix. The county, again, is coordinating all the reimbursements. Macomb County was given $2.5 million. We asked for a wish list, and the state ponied up and said you can have everything you asked for. So you guys see all the items on there listed. We also got a ballot on demand system, which was about 10 grand. That is used for early voting to actually print the ballots, so we don't have to use our election day stock. A couple other things, hand scanners, secrecy sleeves, all the things to transact early voting. I also included the budget amendment that the board passed unanimously on July 9th, which noted in there the mid-year adjustment to capture an increase in operating supplies for our cost center to incur this expense. Again, a lot of money circulating here. We still are owed for the presidential primary, which is 82 grand, as well as the reimbursement for early voting wages that just transacted in August. So we are recapturing a lot. We are also spending a lot, but currently how things sit, I mean, we have recaptured about 26% of what we spent this year thus far. The last two elections of this year being the primary, as well as the November general, that is statutorily defined to Cindy and her delegates, which would be me, to transact. There is no recapture, so to say. The early voting grant money is here now. It will not be here after this cycle, so we're just capturing everything we can. We asked for 10 tabulators for our first wave of early voting, and we found out we don't quite need 10, but that also helps us with our capital in the sense that when those machines reach the end of their life expectancy, we already have things that were supplied by the state that we can rotate. Those tabulators are about $5,800 a pop, so we're just getting as much as we can paid for by the state. I guess it's kind of 6 in one and half a dozen the other. It's all taxpayer money at the end of the day. It's just, it's not directly coming from us. So that is all that I have on that.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the board? Treasurer Elliott.
Mr. Brzezinski, how much is the total cost of this election cycle for 2024 been?
It has been quite expensive. On the 29th here, we're going to pay out the payroll for the election inspectors, which is 46 grand. The thing with elections and its administration, it's a personnel heavy business. We don't necessarily reap a material item at the end of it, except that we transacted the election. So if we're just speculating here, we've had 3 elections thus far. I'm going to exclude the Lance Cruz May election, the New Haven Lance Cruz election. We did receive reimbursement for that already. But between February, what we billed to the presidential nominating parties was $82,000. August is probably going to be, with overtime for F&O, which we absorb, as well as our staff, will probably be about another $87,000, so that's $160 there. And then November, we'll call it $100 just to be, higher on that. So about $250,000 for the elections. And then again, all the supplies, moving things, the Penske trucks for F&O to deliver the tabulars is quite a bit of money.
So you said $250,000 for how much?
For the elections, all the way up to the end of this year, for just the personnel and facilitating it.
For just personnel and facilitating it?
Yes, if we're
Now,
speculating right now.
I had asked you the question after the August election, and you had quoted me over $500,000, closer to $750,000. What would that included?
Well, you have to assume the other costs as well. We have personnel, full-time equivalent, so you have longevity, holiday, PTO, our regular wages. In addition to that, again, the operating supplies, printing and publications, envelopes, notices, AV applications. So there's a lot of items within that also add, as well as the IT. We had quite a bit of outlay this year for capital planning for PCs, for workstations for the temps, and also the temps.
How much did those PCs cost?
We got it through the Dell MyShare deal that is through the state. The purchasing agent did procure that for us at the cheapest rate. I believe those PCs were $794 a pop, and we did consult with Paul as well. So,
how many of them?
I can't speculate to how many we have now. I believe we ordered 6, and then we had 10 facilitated through the state for early voting.
So that total bill for those PCs was it more than this amount?
Mr.
What amount are you
Supervisor,
referring to?
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, is there a question here that pertains to agenda item I anywhere in the
Yes.
near future?
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
So that total amount was probably more than this. Would this grant funding apply to those PCs?
Under the early voting grant 1, some of those costs were captured, not all. So
Okay.
I would say it was probably a 50% recapture rate on the PCs, because again, what was forecasted and the actual incurred expense weren't 1-for-1, but it was subsidized.
Okay.
And again, those monies are still outstanding at this time. Like I said, the state has been a good partner on promising reimbursements will come timely. Again, they review things. It goes through their procurement unit. OIG reviews it for its authenticity, meaning that all the items listed as being incurred by the local unit are in fact the case. They go and pencil through and say, hey, this election inspector worked election day. We're not paying for election day. We're only paying for early voting. So again, it's the 4th pillar of government here at its finest, the bureaucracy. But again, we are recapturing a lot of money. Since I came here, I cleared up the HAVA grants that were outstanding before my tenure here. So we are taking action and reducing the cost. But again, election administration is exactly that. There's functions described to the local unit. Tax collection is one of them, as well as the clerk, and then your role as treasurer to levy and collect. So it's unfortunate to look at it as just, the monolith of the cost. We have incurred quite a bit of cost this year, but again, the formula to what voting in has changed. It's all the same ingredients, but now we have, different players in the kitchen. We have this early voting thing. We are now adding a new list to the AV. There's 3 ways of voting, and the formula that we projected, which was going to be a nice cohesive 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 equals 100, hasn't been the case. Early voting, we only had 300 voters, but again, we're obligated to run that for 9 days. You had asked the question, is there any savings to be had there? And Tony Ferlini, as clerk, said, home rule is a big deal here in Macomb County. Conservative communities, the local clerk runs elections. But we can explore municipal cooperative agreements and reduce costs in that way. So this was the first time we've done all this. So there's a lot of outlay that won't be there in the future. So we're trying to lean it out.
Thank you, sir. Clerk Perry?
So the item that we have in front of us today is specifically for 25 voting booths. Our voting booths that we've had them for a very long time. They're literally, F&O tells us all the time, they're falling apart. We know that. We had intended on bringing this to the board because we knew that these things some of them are, a couple decades old, and they are literally falling apart. So we knew we would be doing this anyway, but in this case, it's being covered by the grant, and so we're bringing it in front of the board. We are required to provide one voting booth per 300 registered voters per precinct. So therefore, the number of voting booths that we need is a state statute. And this number that we're providing to you here today, once we procure these, then we will, with the growth in Chesterfield, we will then be able to meet the minimum standards required by the law.
Any further questions or comments from the board? I have a motion by trustee Anderson, supported by clerk Berry, to approve item 10I. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
No.
Supervisor Kersten.
No. Item 12, public comments. There is a 3-minute time limit. If you would, please state your name for the record so we can keep track. The mic is open.
Michelle Merriweather, and I think it's an absolute shame I have to come up here 4 years later to address Mr. Joseph, who continues to want to talk about race and the color of skin and misquote people. Mr. Joseph, I would have thought that the National Council of Negro Women and the North Macomb NAACP had educated you a bit, especially when apparently you gave that thin-veiled response to the NCW. So I'll just go over it again. And apparently, you know, dementia is real, so you might want to check it. So with the elections, no, I've been working in this community since 2008. I am who I am. I'm always working for the residents. And just to make sure we're clear, one of the beautiful things about losing, you know, your parents last year was that it motivates you. So I motivated myself to grow a tech company. So my words, so they don't get misconstrued, we're being aired right now to all 300,000 of my followers on all 6 platforms. So let me address you now as the only candidate of color running, because you seem to always want to misconstrue my words. The police. We've always had a great relationship with Brian and the police department. Always. Last year, again, maybe you forgot, we gave them a Black History Month award for the outstanding community work that they're doing in the community. So we applaud and we love our police. You're going back to something 4 years ago when you, sir, wanted to pass an ordinance to basically care more about corporate business than our residents who are marginalized, who were simply trying to take a shopping cart to a bus stop to take their items. That's what it was. The email that I sent to you, and again, it's live because we've talked about this numerous times and you're having trouble. So I'm gonna go slow. So the email that I sent to all the members of the board that only you seem to keep talking about for 4 years, that email had to do with a reference to what blind ordinance caused. The example given was what happened in Lansing with a blind ordinance. You were also giving statistics and a report from the White House on blind ordinance in that email, but again, comprehension may not be strong, so I'm gonna give it to you. The only one campaigning from the podium or from anywhere is you. So just stop. You've gone over the same thing 4 years. You're trying to taint me as someone who doesn't like police. I'm a proud sister of a police sergeant. Hey, Julian, in Indianapolis. Police is watching too. And I'm the proud granddaughter of one of the first sheriffs of color in Louisville, Kentucky. So stop the narrative in terms of who hates the police, who doesn't like the police. It's tired, it's old. I'm here to focus on the constituents. We've got issues with water. We've got issues with property taxes. We have issues with culverts. We have issues with roads. And you want to talk about color of skin. Let's do better. I'd like to thank the supervisor because we had lunch about this 4 years ago. Had conversations with everyone up here. Move on, sir, move on. Thank you, everyone.
John, Speaker, can't we all just get along? We're 70 days till the November election. This is the most dysfunctional majority board that I've ever seen. Priority came to this podium and we were told that we wouldn't even notice a change in the township. That didn't happen. Supervisor Kersten talked about active ditching programs. What I didn't hear him say is what's he going to do to implement active ditching programs for the residents. Payment of the bills should be a regular agenda item. I've said it before and I will continue fighting for that because I am a fighter in this township for the residents. And let's get one thing straight. It was Mr. Paul LaFata was the individual that stepped out, thought out of the box, and created public safety. Public safety was created in this township because of Mr. Paul LaFata. Trustee Joseph was the engineer to bring the fire department to agree to give their money up to the police department and form both departments. How do we have constant barriers in Sugar Bush where we're talking about bringing kids into a building and erecting a wall that building contains lead and asbestos. Anything that's done to that building requires a hazmat team to come in and to properly do it. So I don't agree that those kids should come in, and it needs to be done properly if we're going to do it, and I didn't hear that. And the only one sitting on this board that I know of that displaced the seniors, and there is no question about this, was Supervisor Kersten. Supervisor Kersten pushed, again, Cindy Berry out of Sugar Bush and forced her to come here. He displaced the seniors. No one else did this. And I'm asking Trustee Vosberg again, if you can't fulfill your 4 years, your obligation, please step down. Do not run. Let the residents pick a candidate that will fill that seat that will work for the residents for the full term. And as far as the Chesterfield Interceptor, thank you, Mr. Joseph, for clearing that up. Because there were other municipalities, and I sat in this room when Mr. Seberg said that if we take responsibility for that interceptor, then we've got no way of recouping any money from those other municipalities. And this majority board, again, went against Mr. Seberg's advice and voted to accept the interceptor. A failure on this township.
Janice Young. I can't tell you how relieved I am. I'm not in this race anymore. I can go about my life, do what I do, say what I want to say, and not be accused of campaigning. Can't say that of everybody else in the room here, but a couple things just real quick. Trustee Demink, you got pretty excited over a $1,000 expenditure and not receiving an email approval ahead of time. But yet our APO was violated with the lease of the building. There was no public hearing and no competitive bids, and you didn't say a word about that. So anyway, and then Ms. Garby, if I can address her, your actions on social media, I can address you. No, I'll address you.
You address me.
No,
You don't need to
Supervisor
address
Kersten. Our assistant supervisor is the moderator on the largest Chesterfield social media page. She is censoring the residents and protecting certain board members up there with her actions, and I'm asking you if that's ethical, legal, or if there's anything can be done about it. Thank you.
Any further residents? Any further comments from the public? Item 13, board comments. Trustee Demink.
Thanks for all the comments tonight. Hope everybody has a safe and happy Labor Day weekend. And Mr. Speaker, I love your comments. You just keep going, but you know what? You're 0 for 7 in elections. Oh, excuse me, 0 for 8, because I heard you lost in your, homeowners association. I'm fine. You know what? I went 5 for 5, so I went for 6. But guess what? I'm going to retire and enjoy the good life. I don't have to listen to you. I'm done.
I have nothing further to say, thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Leave it in a peculiarly positive mode, besides discussion of hockey players tonight. Everybody have a good Labor Day weekend and be careful. We'll see you in September.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. First, just like to say thanks to First State Bank, and I'm hope their event is good. They are truly one of the great community partners, and there really isn't an event that happens in the township that First State Bank isn't involved with. Mr. Rayner, I wanted you to hopefully be here for the front end of this meeting. There was some discussion from the supervisor's office, and not to recap the entirety, but a big focus on the bus and bus money. In particular, the supervisor outlined the percentage of revenue that we put into the system and what we get back in the township. He is proposing a modification in how we award our, how we conduct our relationship without being able to make some really simple demands, simple requests, and adequate shelters with trash cans and pads and the like. I think there's some good work being done there. The work that Karen and Brad are doing in that front, I think, is commendable, and I hope to see some changes that I trust you will be happy with as well. But it is a team effort, and the difficulty with that organization is bureaucratically they're a little bit cumbersome to deal with. So trying to make sure we're not a donor community is a good thing. As it relates to the comments, I intentionally didn't mention anybody by name, but clearly when the shoe fits, the rightful recipient wears it. I will simply provide the email, which was a couple of years ago, not 4. I'll provide you the email, and anybody that wants to see it can see the attack that was lodged against our PD. The vote on the ordinance was a vote that I took a very hard position. I was commended by the writer of the email, along with Trustee Anderson, for being smart. And then when I clarified why, I was then a racist. I don't wish to continue this either. I have been I have been elected to represent all of Chesterfield Township. And I know that individuals get to the podium and they talk about the people that they represent. I don't know who that is. I don't see color in that way. I represent all of the residents in the township, and I'm glad that hundreds of thousands of subscribers will now see the Chesterfield Township Board Meeting, and they will come to know very quickly that this is a great place to live, work, and play. Regardless of your skin color or gender, it is a great place, so I welcome the hundreds of thousands of viewers that are watching under this new platform, and I'm glad that they're here. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As far as the Chesterfield Interceptor, when I first came in office, it was unfortunate to learn that that had not been really handled, and there was no solution. Say, the public safety issue and the police department, there was a solution that was worked very hard on to come there. And I wished that similar solution was handled. This is not a new piece of infrastructure to the township. This is actually quite old, and it's been around for a long time, just like detention ponds and everything else. So what we can do is either sit and argue about how we got here, or we can just fix it, because there's 3,000 people that are 3,000 households that are affected, or businesses that are affected, and you have to fix it. And the fact is we've gone over and over and over. You have $5 million that was given to fix it, and so I voted to take care of that, because that's where we're at today. And the other thing that's really important for me to talk about today is I want to thank my husband, Bill Elliott, for the sacrifice that you have given to our family and our township today on our anniversary. Thank you, Bill.
Clerk Barry.
Happy anniversary, Treasurer Elliott. Very, very happy. I know my birthday and anniversary are very close, just like yours are, and many times they fall on election night or they fall on a board meeting night. So I've been in your position, and hopefully you will enjoy and celebrate later appropriately. So I'm sure Bill will take care of that. Also, the clerk's office oftentimes receives the bulk of phone calls for just about anything under the sun. When someone can't get a hold of a specific department or they don't know where to go, it defaults to the clerk's office. And I would just like everyone to understand that we do our best to triage those calls to the appropriate departments. We aren't pushing anyone off of anything. It's not that we're not willing to be helpful, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that those calls and those concerns get to the appropriate person in the appropriate department who can help you best. Just like we ask all of the other departments, if you get any election-related questions, ordinance-related questions, FOIA questions, all of that, please send down to us to make sure that everyone gets the appropriate, accurate information. So please don't misunderstand. We aren't pushing anyone off anywhere. We are simply trying to get calls routed and get folks to the appropriate individuals to assist them. I say this to know that certainly after tonight's storms, I see a lot of damage already. Even on the way here, I had to dodge a couple of very large tree branches, and I know we've had some property damage. It's inevitable that some of those calls are going to fall to us tomorrow morning. We will be forwarding all of those calls to the supervisor's office. I'm sure that Supervisor Kersten has already in place a very well-orchestrated plan to manage those calls, and he is the one who also directs the Public Works Department and Public Safety and all of those folks who can help you. So I just want everyone to understand that as those types of calls come in tomorrow, we will be forwarding directly to the appropriate individuals to help with that. But please feel free to call us if you have any questions regarding elections, ordinances, or FOIA requests. Thank you.
So we'll continue to study our infrastructure and work on not only water and sewer needs. We'll continue to look at sidewalks and sidewalk gap programming. The committee has been formed. Again, as I mentioned in the last meeting, we're working towards that. Tonight's discussion about Bay Harbor and the sinkhole, just so I remind everybody, that is not a new discussion. That discharge pipe has been struggling for many years. The cement in front of the old fire station on Jefferson has been failing for years because of this, the failure of this long-term pipe. And it's been on the project list for the last couple of years, and hopefully we'll get it taken care of this November. It is going to interrupt the road, and it is underneath the road. We'll continue to work for grants and earmarks in both state and federal dollars. As was clarified tonight, at the senior center, the community center, there will be no contact with seniors and children. That will be blocked off. The fire marshal, the state fire marshal, is very familiar with that, and it's not done haphazardly. As far as my office, we have management meetings almost every week. We actually have one tomorrow, where all departments and elected officials are welcome to come in and sit down, where we discuss everything from grants to directions to plans to agenda items, and participation is always welcome there. As I think I heard, we're on pace right now to have an elections of right around $800,000 just in Chesterfield Township alone. In comparison to other communities, that it's substantially more. As far as garbage priority, I appreciate them coming in. We have been managing the complaints from Priority, and they were extensive. Over the past 2 months, I've engaged our attorney and to see what direction we could go, following suit with other communities and other townships is what they're doing with theirs. We are very limited. Priority serviced that contract. The board awarded them that contract, assigned it to them, and we are obligated by that contract. But just so you know, I did reach out to other vendors to see if they would even come in and honor the price that we have, and those vendors would not do it unless this went out for bid again, and their only statement is, we will participate in an open bid process. I then went further to seek what it would cost to develop our own sanitation department here in Chesterfield Township. I quit at $6.5 million. 5.5 of that was just in 5 14-yard garbage trucks that were straightforward with no technology on them. That doesn't even include the permitting required to get it into a landfill. So when you say that we're doing nothing and we're not listening, again, misleading. The ditching program, I don't know what you mean when again, you make a comment about ditching, and it's not our problem, it's the road's problem. I'm simply trying to help them out and come up with a solution. And as far as my obligation, you're right. We have an obligation to the people, and the people spoke. With that being said, I will adjourn this meeting.
We need a motion.
Motion to adjourn this meeting.
Is there a
Clerk Barry.
Is there, I'm sorry.
Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten made the motion. Do we have a
To
second?
adjourn. Support?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.